WLSAM.com for rules.
All right, we've set aside our usual cantankerous talk about politics this Friday afternoon to celebrate the 95th anniversary of WLS. Hit the air back on this date in 1924. We've talked to Jim Johnson and John Guerin and Tommy Edwards and Jeff Davis and John Landecker, Phil Duncan, Tom Tradup, and still more to come. And I'm going to continue to do this throughout the summer, I think, as we go through our 95th year, because there's so many people. It's just great to hear from old friends. By the way, guys, has Pat Buttram called back or Patsy Montana? Okay, it's tough to get people from the barn dance era, but I want to bring Garry Meier on the air here, because Garry is a huge talent in his own right. An all-star in my mind, the best counterpuncher in radio, he's been described as. And he actually has a foot in the Rock of Chicago era here. And then, of course, a huge part during the talk era. And the rock era, of course, was Steve Dahl. And then, of course, a Ro Khan after a flip to talk. And Garry, welcome back to WLS. It's great talking to you, sir.
John, I appreciate the invitation. You mentioned the barn dance. You could have spent a half hour on that era at WLS. Because I don't know if you heard about this. They had a goat on in the morning and a baboon doing afternoons. And there's a radio station down the dial that has replicated that lineup.
Yes, I noticed that recently myself. And that's good to bring big things back from the past. You know, if they worked once, they can work again. Lord knows this market knows that.
On the air this week. Don't you see what's happening? The business is killing you.
The business is killing me. I'm just trying to run out the line here, Garry. That's all.
Well, you almost died doing what you almost don't love anymore. Radio.
Garry, that was much ado about nothing. It was totally overblown. All right.
You'll do anything for publicity, won't you, Johnny?
That's right.
Hey, anything to get Bob Feeder. Kathy Voltmer is great. I haven't talked to her in a long time. She's wonderful.
Yeah, Hi, Garry. Thank you. I miss you.
Yeah, you sound great. And also one of your dedicated sponsors, Bettenhausen Automotive. The place wouldn't be alive without sponsors, and they have been so loyal to WLS over the years and to my podcast. I just want to thank them right there. All right, Johnny, what's the question?
Garry, I want to know, since you worked on both of these shows, they're both extraordinarily successful. Used to be must-listen radio, you with Steve, and then you with Ro. If you can compare these two shows, which one was better, or are they just two different animals?
Gee, I don't know. I think the first go-round, I was in country in the mid-'80s, and then 10 years later I came back. I think the first go-round, I think I'll never forget all the suspensions. I think that was a good thing to remember. And then the second time, I'll never forget the general manager pulling me off the air because he couldn't negotiate a contract. So those are the memories that stick with me. Those are the beautiful moments that I had there. Now, we did the first run, and they were still playing some music, and we didn't play that much music. And then when I came back, the music was gone because, as you know, fidelity on AM is not too good for music.
Yeah, it's tough when every song fades out under every bridge.
Yeah, so that was the end of that. But, it was 13 years, and overall, pretty good.
Well, I remember hearing, you back with Steve. That was extraordinary. That was groundbreaking, obviously. And then with Ro, too, at 2 o'clock, along with Jim Johnson, and whoever Clyde was, I don't know if that's a bit or if that was a real guy, but that was also must-listen radio.
I still don't know if he was real. I know a lot of people thought it was some racist thing that we were trying to pull off, but he was, in fact, black. We had him at a remote, and we did prove that he was black. But outside of that, wow.
But it was terrific. And then Ron Majors would join you guys every day for a half hour or so. I mean, does that stuff grow organically, or did somebody help you put that together?
I think that was fairly organic. The only stuff that's ever worked in my career has happened organically. I've never been able to make things work unless they just kind of evolved and fell where they should have fallen, and that's why these things happened. I just kind of was there, and things happened, and they just worked. And I think Ron Majors was a friend, so we decided that would be a good person to have on every afternoon, so that was just something we put in there. But things just happened, and they were right for the time, and that's why it worked the way it did.
Give us a kind of a 2-minute tutorial on your thoughts on the state of radio today, corporately.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think anybody, even the listener, is aware of this. It ain't what it used to be. I don't think the fizz is there the way it was in the heyday. And I know it might sound like, well, he's just bitter about that. But no, I think you can hear that it's different. The business has changed. When we were doing it, there was no internet, so there was not that competition. There weren't thousands of platforms to choose from. and that made it a different animal. So radio stations operated differently. And now, with the corporation enlarging their portfolio with 1,000, 10,000 radio stations, whatever they do, and then they kind of run them all like they're dollar stores in a lot of ways, where they just kind of program them like they're the same in every city. They play the same music if they're playing music or whatever, and I don't think you can do that and be what you need to be. And I think we're seeing that it isn't what it was, say, 10, 15, 20 years ago. But I don't know if it would have been, even if they were at the top of their game, with what's happened with technology. So this is different. This is different, and I don't know what the outcome's going to be. You think you're going to make it to 100?
Me personally, or the radio station? I think the radio station will be here in 5 years. I suspect. I might not, but I think the station will be.
Hell, you might have 5 weeks the way you're going there. Hey, did Ramblin' Ray bring you a sandwich the other day? Was that what did it?
I don't know.
What's going on?
Ray is concerned, but not that concerned, because I've been in accidents with him in the past, and believe me, he's seen me bounce back. Guerin was on, your former boss, John Guerin, talking about the Steve and Garry days and the dust-up you had with Larry Lujak. I understand he made one small mistake in his description of that fight.
Yeah, but that was a minor thing about who had the broken leg. All the other stuff did happen where Larry, who was massively sleep-deprived at that point, he would do the morning show and then stay at the radio station all day, and then he decided at 8 p.m. to drive back to Palatine from downtown Chicago. That sounds like a great schedule. Who wouldn't snap after about 6 months of that?
Especially when you guys would ridicule that Animal Stories intro day in and day out. I mean, come on.
Well, like, whatever. And it was just percussion. We enjoyed the back and forth, we thought, but he took it personally, and he came in. And I'll tell you what, Larry was an idol for me. I listened to him when I was in high school. And, John, if you ever have an idol, threaten bodily harm, you're going to get a chubby. I'm telling you, it was a moment.
I heard it.
I thought, that was my idol, and now he wants to kill me.
It was the greatest.
Great.
It was the greatest. You at least stuck it out. I think Steve skedaddled, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, I was on crutches, so it took me a little longer. But then Larry had to finish our show. It was Bizarro World.
It was bizarre. All right, Garry, your podcast is terrific. I think our old friend Keith does a nice job of that for you. So go to GarryMeier.com. Make sure you spell Garry correctly, for crying out loud. And I appreciate your time. And if you so feel fit, you're welcome back here anytime you want.
No, thank you. And we have to remember back in the 20s when the station first started, the Wright brothers were doing the morning show.
They were terrific, weren't they?
Yeah.
They really had the great give and take.
Bicycles.
Yeah. Thank you, Garry.
Thanks, Shotty.
See our good friend Garry Meier right here on WLS.